Hi, good evening and good afternoon, all of you. Thank you very much for joining us on a Saturday afternoon. We have a very exciting program, and this is on behalf of 100 Watts and TIE Mumbai. My name is Ajay Agarwal. I represent 100 Watts as a managing partner. I also am associated with Nihilent as a global retail practice leader. 100 Watts is a platform driven by TIE and the industry leaders with the objective of building innovation in the retail industry. Our goal is to bring how we can bring more and more technology into play, especially the innovation technology, especially due to pandemic. The innovation plays a very important role. And what we are doing in 100 Watts is we are identifying the innovative ideas, innovative startups, and then we mentor them for achieving the product market fit. And then with the help of our leaders, our mentors, we take them to the industry. And in case any of you have got brilliant ideas, please reach out to us after this event. Today's event is part of the series of events which we do every month. One is we do a masterclass every month, and we do a conversation called Talk Retail every month, where we discuss issues and pertaining to the industry. And today's event is purely based on the demand and the requirement raised by a lot of founders from the startup space. That how do we start selling our technology or our solution to enterprise accounts? And that's where we thought we will bring in one of our mentors, Piyush Chowhan. Piyush is a veteran in this industry. I know him for about how many years. And Piyush is also very passionate about startup ecosystem. He's one of the big contributors to 100 Watts success and progress, and we are quite grateful to him. So Piyush has agreed to today's session. Piyush, since he's a buyer, he sits on the other side of the table. I think he's the best guy to tell us how to crack CIOs like Piyush to go and sell it to them. Welcome to us, welcome to 100 Watts, and welcome to Masterclass, Piyush. Thank you very much for taking out your time today. And over to you. The format of the program for the session today is that Piyush will start the session. He will take you through some of the ideas and the things he has in mind. And then a lot of you have sent questions to us. We have curated some of the questions in our list. Then we'll discuss around those questions for some more time. And in the end, we will take up some of the questions which will be raised during the session by some of you. If you have any questions, please write down in the chat box. I will request that just stick to the questions only, and I will suggest that do not write comments and just stick to the questions. Over to you, Piyush, and thank you very much once again for being with us.
Thank you, Ajay. Good evening, good afternoon, everyone from wherever you are joining. It's a great pleasure to be here, and it's a topic which is quite dear, and I'm passionate about this. I've been a buyer for I don't know how many years, but I've seen the journey of large enterprise software companies. I've seen the journey of in the last 7-8 years. I would have interacted with a lot of startup ecosystem software providers. And what I will do today is kind of walk you through some of the things that I see from the modern age software providers, and not look at the so-called large enterprise software companies, but be focused on how startups can leverage some of the learnings that I've got. And we'll kind of do that for about 20, 25, 30 minutes at the max. And then we'll have a little bit of an interaction with Ajay. And then at the end, we'll try to answer some of the questions. So that is the format that we'll kind of go through. And as the slide suggests, it's a deep water area. So tread with caution is what I would say. It's not easy. And if you were to basically look at some of the questions that you guys have been asking, how do you use your marketing funds? What is the difference between a B2B and a non-SaaS B2B player? How is it different for an MSME sector? What are the digital models for B2B marketing? How to crack new geographies? What is zero marketing budget sales look like? how do you crack new accounts, how do you acquire new accounts. So what we saw is when I went through the questions, it gave a very different flavor in terms of somebody who is a very early stage, just building the product, or just found the product. How do you go launch in the market? Somebody maybe just 5-6 accounts into the journey, and then how do you scale that? And then maybe a slightly bigger ones who are kind of wanting to go and explore new geographies. So these are the three broad buckets that I see where you would want to scale your product, and you will want to kind of go into multiple territories. And we'll try to cover most of these questions. So if you look at this chart on the left, B2B enterprise as such is very easy now to be built, right? Because you have a lot of enablers in place. So for example, if you were to build something, there are ready-made tools available. You can scale faster in terms of building product and so on and so forth. But growth is where the whole problem is. Yeah, and what we are seeing is while if you read the kind of forecast, last decade was all about B2C growth. Yeah, we have seen huge amount of growth of all the B2C players, which are now culminating into e-commerce platforms, which are going into IPOs and stuff like that. This is the decade of B2B enterprise products, and B2B enterprise product scaling is much tougher than B2C, because B2C you can throw in a lot of money and keep on getting growth. Profitable or not profitable is a different question, but at least you will see growth. Yeah, and you can grow on somebody else's money. But enterprise B2B is a very, very different ball game altogether, and that is where I think B2B enterprise sales is going to be much more difficult than what we had seen for the B2C decade in the past. So why is it different? The difference is it's a global market. Yeah, you are not only competing with a very small market player, because today everything seems to be global. Enterprise requirements are much complex, and when we're trying to sell it to an enterprise, although it might look as if there are only a few players in the world who are dominating the enterprise software market, but no longer. Requirements are very complex in nature, and they need personalization. And at the end, the pricing models which are prevalent in the market are very complex. So you will have to navigate through all these 4 points that I've talked about in terms of how do you compete at a global scale, how can you make sure that your offerings are personalized and you are able to manage those complexities within your offerings, and how can you price it such that it looks very different and more appealing to your enterprise clients. And at the end, if that was not enough, this is a chart. I don't want you to read through this, but this is a chart actually drawn. Gartner has done a very good job in terms of identifying what a B2B buying journey looks like. Yeah, and you would understand how complex the problem and the process is. Yeah, and so it is not very easy if you just start thinking that, okay, let me put in a product, let me identify a problem statement which the enterprises are looking for, and then I just walk out into the space. You will be able to identify and complete that buying journey much more easily. But that is not the case, as you would see from the chart which is shown here. So if you were to look at the previous two slides, you would start feeling that if it is so difficult, how do we say that this is going to be the decade for B2B enterprise sales? And what I will kind of cover is very, very high level bullet points in terms of what you should be doing, where you should be looking for, what should be your strategy at a high level, and how you can fly high. And I'm sure people would have seen this advertisement, which was or a promo which was done by Emirates, in terms of they put a air hostess on top of Burj Khalifa, yeah, which is the tallest building of the world. And nothing is impossible if you really plan it well. Obviously, the outcome was fantastic, but until unless there was planning, there was support system, and there was the right tricks and techniques which were applied, you would surely come out successful at the end of this journey. So the first part, I just want to highlight in terms of, I will present some kind of high level data points now, just to make sure that people who is watching this. There are two broad sources that my whole presentation is based on. I would encourage everyone to go and have a look at it. There was an enterprise SaaS report which was published by SaaS Bhumi in conjunction with NASSCOM and I think McKinsey. Very, very informative report. It is available. You just go and register and you will be able to see that. And there is another which is by Bain Capital. There was another enterprise SaaS report which was published by them, which predominantly will give you a lot of insight. If you want to really go into details of it, you just take these two reports. You'll be able to gain a lot of information from these two reports which is out there. And I'll try to cull out a few things. So obviously, it is very prevalently known that digital acceleration has increased. The enterprise tech intensity is going to intensify in the coming decade. Yeah, which means that the spend on tech is going to be significantly higher, which is a no-brainer. But one thing, if you look at the right-hand side corner, what is coming out is that tech natives will take a much higher share in the days to come. Yeah, which means that don't try to attack or look at problems which are solving problems of the past decade. Look at something which is going to be emerging in the days to come, rather than trying to solve problems which are already solved by somebody else in the past decade. Very, very important, because that is where the growth will come from, and that is where you will be able to kind of find your product market fit in this decade. And so obviously, if you were to go and sell to enterprises, there are three broad buckets that you should be looking at. What is your target segment that you're looking at? One is, you could be a horizontal application. And what I mean by that is, so I'll give you a retail context here. You would build something which is useful for your let's say understanding the customers. Understanding customer or any marketing tech solution is applied in any industry. Yeah, so you would basically look at those kind of solutions which are more like horizontal solutions, which is a segment which will continue to shrink as we move along. Yeah, I know it is big now, but I think it will continue to shrink. Enabling solutions, which are system, infra, and development tools. If you see the middle orange box, which is where the big kind of problem statement lies today. And you will see that lot more companies will continue to improvise the entire infra and the development tool space, which will ultimately cater to the horizontal applications and the vertical applications which are out there. If you were to, and that is where the maximum growth will come in, and the spending will be the highest in that space, and the growth will be the highest in that space. And if you look at vertical solutions, now these are all industry solutions. You will see that is actually overtaking in terms of growth. Is the second largest growth you will see after the system and infrastructure tools. And so you identify very clearly, don't be hodgepodge across all the three. You identify which kind of solution you are trying to build. Yeah, and I've seen a lot of startups who say that I want to be entire end-to-end solution provider. No longer the case. Start identifying which are the three verticals that you're looking at, and then you basically try to position yourself and identify the niche and product market fit for yourself. The second problem that people always believe that the growth in which geography that we should be looking for. Let me tell you from my experience, as I told in the beginning, this is going to be a global market. B2B enterprise is more a global play. It would be very naive to say that I want to create something just for one very small market. you may want to start your journey in one very specific market, but you should always, if you are looking at a B2B enterprise, you should always think to make your product as global as possible. And as you would see in the slide which is shown here, the market in all these geographies is growing significantly at almost the same pace, which means that you have a large market to go with. I'm not saying you should go to all the markets at one go, but try to make sure that your product market fit is there, so that whenever you take the product global, you are ready for it in your journey. And this is a very important realization that unlike in the past, where the growth, and you would see from the graph which is shown on the left-hand side, is that we are living in an age of what I call as hyper scale and hyper growth. Yeah, and that is the only differentiator for the startup ecosystem to realize, is that growth is what matters for anybody in the industry. While we would be very happy to say that there is very easy money which is available, all the private equity and venture capital funds are flushed with money, and that they're just kind of very easily putting money. But one of the things that you would realize, that money is only chasing one important metric, that is growth. Yeah, and now the growth trajectory, unlike in the past. So if you see very large enterprise software companies in the past, they would be growing at 5, 10, 15%. And those kind of growths were very good in the past decade or before, but no longer. What we are looking at, or what the VCs and the funds are looking at, is growth which is equal to 40% or more in the software journey that you guys are proposing. And hence, it is very important that this overall growth journey of 40% plus is something as a benchmark that you should be looking towards. Yeah, until unless you are able to achieve that, you will not be able to make a very, very great impact in your journey. So if you were to basically look at those data points and try to see how the whole world has changed, what is the state of B2B buying today? And you would see there's a particular trend which I've kind of put here, is that it is no longer about educating your B2B buyer. And if you ask me, it is very naive for any buyer in today's context to say that he does not know what a new or emerging technology is. So, for example, if you look at the last statistic which is there, which is saying that 68% of B2B buyers have already done the research which is about the technology or about the solution. All you need to position is what is the differentiation that you are trying to bring it as part of your offering. So don't try to market about a technology or a solution that you have built, because I will give you a very simple example. And we were talking just some time back, is that customer identification as a solution is available and known as a problem statement to almost everybody, every retailer today. Yeah, how can you identify the customer very uniquely? Yeah, don't try to say that I have built a story around customer identification. You just try to position it such that how are you solving that problem, and how are you trying to create a offering, how are you trying to create an ecosystem so that you are able to kind of engage the customer better, rather than saying that I've built a customer identification technology. So there are these nuances that we need to understand as to how the buyer has moved along from 25% to 68%, which means that 2 in 3 buyers actually know what they are going to buy. Yeah, and that is where the game of B2B selling is very different. And hence, it is very important that you need to look at digital as the first platform in which you start talking about your product, you're talking about your offering, and how you can differentiate. And hence, your kind of share of the mind of the buyer is already there in the digital platform. And as you would see from this chart, that digital is going to be a very, very big focus area for your kind of enterprise strategy in the days to come. The other thing that people typically ask is, what should I start with? Since digital is going to be a very, very big offering in terms of engagement with your B2B buyers, you need to ensure that you need to have a significant amount of investment in inside sales to begin with. Yeah, and that is another statistic that is shown here, is that inside sales over a period of time has become almost 54% of the overall sales organization. So don't go and invest, if you are at least in the early stage, don't invest in terms of bringing in more channel partners or field sales people. Invest strategically in inside sales so that you are able to reach it in a much more cost effective way. And then once you become big enough, then only look at field sales or channel sales as different channels of reaching out to your customer. So please make sure that you understand this statistic, and this is how initial scaling of your solution is going to be. So if we were to look at how you should approach, is a bottom-up go-to-market strategy, in which you should have all the three things, in which there should be some amount of no-touch product-led GTM for conversion and expansion. Now, to me, this is where a lot of enterprise startups that I have interacted with, they say that, sir, our product is not in a space where I can offer something which is product led, or in which I cannot do anything where I cannot have high touch engagement, either through sales or through an integration or a solution selling team. Believe me, every solution will have some amount of hook, or you should create, at least innovate and think that there should be something which should be no touch product led in your offering. Until unless you are able to do that, your product is not enterprise ready in today's context. It was relevant in the past decade, but it is not relevant in today's context. The second is, have a low touch model in which you are able to roll out. And I'll give you a very simple example. I was speaking to a very innovative company. I cannot name them here, but they are creating a kind of an entire ecosystem for checkout-less stores to be rolled out. So they predominantly create the entire platform, right from cameras, right from the software, the checkout process, the product assortment, and everything. And believe me, they are going to roll out. And if you ask somebody from my era to say that, how can you roll out a contactless store without anybody being on the ground? And they were able to, or they are on the way to roll out 100 such stores with only few, I would say a couple of people on the field. And they are already on the way to completing 100 stores rollout for such a heavy touch technology, which means that you need to create a solution which converts itself into a low touch solution. And obviously, once you reach scale, then you can have very high touch enterprise deals in which you predominantly do a lot of stuff which is on the ground and do that. But don't try to do the high touch sales right on day one, because that is not going to give you the profitability, or nor it is going to give you the hyperscale growth that you are looking at. So start on the top two and then move to the third high touch sales as we move along on the journey. And so one of the things that everyone should focus on is that product-led growth is the best growth, which has been kind of rewarded by most of the venture funds. People love them. Anybody who is kind of adopted this strategy are the ones which are being rewarded, and we are seeing the maximum amount of traction along those who are leading the product-led growth strategies. Yeah, don't look at having large enterprises only through your sales, field sales, and those kind of channels. Look at how you can penetrate and then SaaSify your product so that you are able to do that. And a lot of people would kind of give a justification that our product is not ready. And I'll give you a very simple example. There is a company called Peak, which is a UK-based company. Now, people would realize that, okay, if you were to roll out a, let's say, AI solution, they have built a platform called Cody, which actually personifies the entire AI developer. Yeah, so they have created a platform which is actually replacing what an AI developer would do in terms of ingestion of data, generation of models, and creation of do that. Now, that will not replace the entire AI community, but it at least provides an entry point into the organizations to start small, and which is what agile organizations are looking at. Agile organizations looking at simple solutions by which they can start their journey in a small way using this product-led growth companies, and then obviously they need to scale up their offerings and the solutions in the days to come. And if you see some of the companies that we are talking about, everybody started in a product-led growth journey, and then obviously they subsequently move towards large enterprise sales, which is more high touch in the subsequent phases of their evolution. And so one of the complex questions which comes when there are product-led models which are out there, what is the pricing model? And this is where the complexity lies. When we were in the early part of this century, our pricing was very simple. Yeah, either it is based on the features, or either it was based on the number of users. So we always had very simple kind of negotiation and discussions with the sellers which are out there. Fortunately or unfortunately, the pricing models have become very complex now. Yeah, and so if you see, there are some 7 models that I've put in. Either it could be a flat rate pricing, where you disrupt the market. It can be based on usage. It can be based on tiering in terms of the complexity of the tiers which are out there. It can be based on users. It can be based on per active user as well, or it can be based on features. And last one, which is obviously coming very handy in today's context, is the freemium pricing model. So you need to identify what kind of strategy that you're looking at for reaching out to your customer. What is the pricing which is appropriate for that strategy which is out there? Until unless you align these two things. So for example, you cannot say that the example that I gave you, AI solution based model, you cannot say that I will have it as a per user base, because the user is nothing but an AI developer in that context. It may not make sense. It should be based on the usage base, because a simple solution, which is a simple AI solution, and complex AI solution will have different usage of resources and subsequent things. So appropriate pricing with the appropriate product market fit and appropriate growth strategy, all of them put together is what you should be looking for. And so what not to do, I'm kind of in the last part of my presentation. After that, we can kind of make it more interactive. What not to do. Don't keep on doing free POCs, hoping that you would crack into the enterprise POC business. 2 or 3 is good, but beyond that, look at the product. Look and see whether the product is really making an impact to the customer or not. Every deal is a good deal, but if it continues with a free POC for a very long time, look back and kind of put in innovation into the product. Any deal which is less than $10,000 should not consume more than 3 meetings. If there are enterprise clients wherein you are having to have 10, 15, 20 meetings, and you would know that the outcome is going to be less than 10K USD per month, or whatever duration that you look at, don't waste time. That is a customer that is not serious about your product. This third very big myth that people have is, let me target the big guys, and large enterprises need to be targeted and they are better. Absolutely wrong. Small customers can be much more meaningful. So identify your market segment very, very clearly and very, very aptly for the solution that you're looking at. The fourth is need of physical presence. As I was mentioning in the previous slides, digital is the way to go. People are having large inside sales teams and doing remote deployments, remote selling, and remote solutioning. So physical presence is not important for expanding globally. It obviously helps, but is not a must. Even when the growth is good, keep the spending between marketing and product equally divided, because we are living in a context in which innovation is going to be the differentiator. What I mean by that is, what happens is, I've seen a lot of companies in which what they said is, I have now got a decent product, let me spend 80-90% of my product of my growth only on marketing and sales. Absolutely wrong. If you are spending 50-50 or 60-40 in your marketing and marketing, sales and product, continue that same percentage. If you spend more on marketing, does not it is not going to kind of take you very long until unless you keep on investing and innovating on a product. So make sure that you don't do these things so that you predominantly are on that journey. So in summary, if I were to basically look at what all we have talked, focus on digital marketing and sales. Digital is the channel. Identify hooks for no-touch sales. Even if it is very small, identify what those hooks are, because we are living in a very, very simple SaaS economy in which customers are looking at no-touch sales. Believe me, if somebody gives me a view and say that, boss, you can identify and look at your customers without going through a much larger integration and deployment cycle, I would be the most happy person to do that. So look at identifying hooks by which you can do no-touch sales, identify product-led growth metrics, and create those product-led growth metrics as hooks. Identify the right pricing model and use your inside sales team effectively. Until unless you do these things, cracking the B2B sales is not going to be easy. Don't think like the SAPs and the Oracles of the world. Their sales mechanism and the sales journey are very different. You are not going to be the SAPs and the Oracles of the world. Yeah, there are new ways of engagement with your B2B buyers. Make sure that you understand them and hope you align towards their expectations so that you can have a great journey in the days to come. So that predominantly is the presentation that I wanted to make. And Ajay, you want to kind of take it to the next level now as the next section?
Yeah, thanks, Piyush bhai. Thank you very much. And I think it was wonderful. And I did not realize that you are also a PLG advocate. So, friends, I think one message came out very clearly from Piyush's talk is that this is the decade for B2B and B2B business. And not only that, also I think that B2B success will largely rely on PLG, and I'm a firm believer of that. And I think the trick lies in, because I see this itself answers a lot of your questions which you have shared with us, through your registration forms, and I think that's where our discussion lies in that. How do we, I think your focus should be, how do you make your business, how do you make your product PLG driven, that's more important thing right now. So I want to ask few things, just to summarize, Piyush bhai. One is, we are all very traditionally, most of them are into this habit of doing POCs, and the POCs is something which consumes a lot of energy and a lot of juice out of startups, especially startup ventures, early stage ventures. How do you beat that before they really get into the PLG model? That's one.
Okay, so I think that's a very valid question, and I if I were to kind of do this talk in 2014, 15, 16. That would have been the right strategy to say that, boss, identify a customer where you can do a free POC, and that will give you a lot more benefit. But having seen the journey 5-6 years down the line from 2015, I would say that era is gone. And why that was needed at that time was the awareness of the buyer was very limited. If you were to go and sell a let's say, video-based checkout solution in 2014-15, people would have their own doubts. But if you go and sell the same thing today to a CIO who is obviously well-read in today's context, he would exactly know that contactless checkout is the in thing. Yeah, it would not require him to be taking through a journey to say that what is contactless checkout meant, and hence the buyer has actually moved on. Yeah, and since the buyer has moved on, if a buyer is continuously asking for more and more PSCs in which you, whatever connect that you have made, the precious time that a startup has two things which are very precious. One is time and money. Yeah, and both the things are absolutely correlated. And so if you are spending a lot of energy in terms of just doing free POCs after free POCs and not able to convert that, and that is what I mentioned, step back. Yeah, there is something fundamentally wrong. Either your target segment is not that great, your product appeal is not that great, or the choices of either of these two are not that great. Until unless you do that, don't waste your energy. Startup ecosystem has to grow significantly fast. Don't waste your energy on doing POCs. If anything, more than 5 POCs and there is no conversion, step back and then relook at your proposition.
So will it be correct? My understanding is, Piyush bhai, I want to understand from you that POC should be done purely, especially by a startup venture, purely from the point of view of achieving a product market fit rather than trying to impress a customer, you know.
That is absolutely true. I may have to mention that is that if you are looking at a product market fit in which you don't know what will work, you should do it at least for 2 or 3. And that is why I'm saying 2 or 3, 5 at the max is the max limit. Yeah, that is perfectly fine. But once you have identified saying that, yes, there is a need by the buyer, and you know that this product is able to solve a particular problem that you are setting out for. If you have known that, after that, doing a free POC makes no sense. Absolutely no sense. And people realize that now. And most of the buyers now are willing to pay a minimal amount. Obviously, don't expect a big amount as part of the paid POC, but make sure that you are able to identify the metrics very clearly and say that, look, this is a 2-month POC. I will measure ABC things. If the ABC things, and have a contract signed with the buyer saying that ABC things are ticked, we will convert it or we back out.
Yeah, absolutely. Another question which comes to my mind, and before I come to other questions, is how relevant is the understanding of domain for these ventures when they go with the solution? Because what I have seen is there are a lot of smart solutions available. They are purely looked at from the technology eye, not from the domain eye. And how does that? What is the importance, and what kind of investment should go into building domain expertise into the product and solution?
Yeah, and that is where if you were to go to one of the previous slides that I was talking about, is this one. Yeah, what kind of solution is this? Whether it is a horizontal solution, whether it's an enabling solution, which is nothing but your system infra and dev tools, and if it is a verticalized solution. Now, what you are asking is, verticalized solution, you need to have extreme and deep domain understanding. Yeah, you cannot have a vertical solution wherein you say that I don't have domain, I have very superficial knowledge of the domain and I will not be able to go very deep. The top 2 ones is where the domain expertise may not play that well, and they are predominantly led by technology. So if you look at the first 2 parts, they're technology led, whereas the bottom, the verticalized solution, is a domain led solution. So you have to identify where you fit in, and based on that, your domain expertise and the importance and investment on domain has to come in. And which is where I think we understand, and that's the reason why we started 100 watts, right? We saw that a lot of these horizontal players who don't understand domain are trying to sell to somebody who understands the domain very well. If somebody comes and says that, here is a voice-based solution, voice-based commerce solution, which you can make it live in a couple of months, and then you will start earning millions. I would laugh at it because he does not understand the domain well. Yeah. So I'm not saying conversational commerce will not fly. It will fly, but it is not as if it's a fly by night thing which will come in. So understanding of domain, understanding of the customer of that particular domain is very important for the vertical solution. The horizontal and the infra solutions are more technology and innovation led. From a technology perspective, vertical solutions are innovation led from a domain perspective.
Before we go to the other questions, I want you to come to your last slide, and I have a question to ask on that. Yeah, this one, the other one. Yeah, no, correct. No, sorry, this one. So, we talked about the pricing, basically identify a pricing model. I think you have a slide on pricing as well separately.
That's correct.
Right. So I was saying that, yes, it is very detailed and very comprehensive. But I think what do you recommend as the simplest way of pricing when you are looking at a PLG roadmap,
Yeah, and that's a very specific question. Yeah, and I cannot give a very generic answer. I'll give you a very simple example, right? And this will evolve not only from a solution perspective, but from the stage of the journey perspective also.
Right.
Yeah. So, for example, you would let's take retail as an example. Yeah. If we were to say that somebody is, and since this is something that we talked about, let's say people counting as a technology is something that every retailer is today looking at, saying that how many people came in, what is the kind of customer that are coming into my stores. I just want to know that. That's a problem. That's a genuine problem to be solved. Many people are solving it. Even the security guys solved it, and today it is being solved by the technology players out there. Now, if you were to look at and scan through the solutions, there are people who are charging based on number of cameras which are out there. There are people who are charging based on number of stores which they roll out the solutions to. There are people who are charging saying that how many customers that I scan, because the more customers you scan, the more amount of data that you generate out of it, and so on and so forth. So there is no one model which will work in. Yeah, and that is what people have to realize. They're saying that SaaS means SaaS does not mean that you need to have just a per user based model. It can be very innovative, and that is where the whole B2B pricing model will evolve. And I think it has not evolved as compared to the B2C models. B2C models have been very unique in the past decade, but B2B model pricing models will evolve. At the moment, the freemium pricing model is what is kind of working very well. Let me be honest, that is the hottest model which is out there in the market. How you are able to create a free, very, very niche offering by which you are able to do that, and still you are able to kind of create that hook and then convert that into a sales and a pricing. A very easy to get into a trap. Please make sure that freemium is a trap in itself. Yeah, if your offering is not very sharp, if your pricing is not very sharp, you will never be able to convert your free into a paying model. So please make sure that you are understanding which stage of the evolution that you are in, what is the type of the offering, and what is the type of customer market segment that you are trying to target to.
Yeah, why I asked you this question, that we have some ventures in our portfolio which have got stuck into this whole, starting from POC to how to convert POC into a paid activity. And normally what happens is the startups, they are very not having confidence in terms of competing with an established player in an opportunity. And that's where they get very confused, and they are not, and obviously, with all respect to enterprises, they try to take advantage of that. In fact, there is a question from Parikshit Kapoor on this about why enterprises hesitate in working with startup as against the established. What is the solution to deal with that?
Yeah, so I think that is where obviously the large enterprise sales guys have an advantage. I would not deny that fact. And that is where you need to identify your customer segment. And that is why I was mentioning this, saying that large enterprises are never good, for startup ecosystem. I would not say never, but most of the large enterprises are not the first place that you should be going with, because people always have a thought, and I've seen that it's a myth, saying that if I crack a very large account or a very large customer in the initial days, it will be very great for my startup. More so, I have seen that is not the right strategy to begin with. You should go with a client which is not your ultimate client in the early days. You should never do that. Because startups have to evolve. You will never launch a product which is already perfectly fit in the market. If you're doing that, then you are in different business. So your product will always be half baked. Your product will have problems. Identify the segment which is going to adopt you the fastest in the early stage. If you have cracked that stage and you have said that I'll give you a very simple example, right? There are HR solutions which are out there, and I can name, let's say, Darwin Box as a solution. When they started in the last decade, they were selling to small players, right, left, and center. Which is where they try to establish their market, and then they have moved on, and they are now competing with the largest players in the world. In today's context, and they are in the top 3 of the Gartner cycle and everything. So it's a journey in itself. Don't try to hit the ultimate goal on day one, because that is not what startups are all about. So point number 1. Point number 2 is make sure that you are aligning to the person. It is not the enterprise, it is the person who is encouraging that evolutionary method of implementation. If somebody is looking at a perfect solution, he is not a target segment guy. Don't waste time in terms of doing POC, because he will keep on giving you, saying that this is not there, that is not there, and then he will keep on asking you things which makes no sense. If somebody is not willing to adopt a product which is not fully ready, he is not the right segment that you should be targeting towards.
So I want to come back to the original point you made beginning, and it was very striking that most of the startups have a habit of going out in the market saying that this is my product. I have developed this fantastic AI ML product, and this is what this is what I do. And I think it's very relevant when you said, don't say that. Instead of say that, what is the problem you're solving and how you're solving that problem. And there is a question from Chinmay asking that, whom to approach in a retail organization for a particular solution. So Chinmay, the answer to your question is, first you identify what is the problem you're solving, and then whose problem you're solving in the business. Identify that person who will be happy to whose music you'll bring to whose ears. And once you have done that, go to that person, hey, listen, this is how I'm going to make your job easy and simplify it. And just show him whatever you have, him or her. Is that correct approach, Piyush bhai?
Absolutely correct. But I just want to add a few things here, and I'll give you a context. So, for example, in the last 5-10 years, we have seen a lot of these so-called analytics companies. They said that I've built a fantastic analytics solution, which is going to give you these things. And I've heard from a lot of the startups saying that, if you go to the technology team, you will not be able to sell. Let's go to the business, because business understands the KPIs better and stuff like that. And these are the kind of myths that are kind of going on in the market. What happens is, if you have a very fantastic, let's say, visualization layer, you use that visualization and go to the business guy. And the business guy will say that, no, this is the KPIs that I was looking for. Fantastic. It looks all good. And then obviously, if you have to go and roll it out, you have to go back to the technology organization. I'm saying you did a deal by showing some jazzy visualization, which is out there. Once you go to the technology guy, he will say that, boss, I need to know whether you have the data security available in your platform. What kind of security are you providing? What is the kind of integrations that you provide? And then once you kind of keep on peeling those layers, you will realize that you have solved a very, very small problem of visualization and position yourself as an AI or an analytic solution. That is not an analytic solution. What you have done is you have created some dashboards which people anyway used to do it in Excel. Now since that there are a lot of tools which are available, you are just doing that. That is not an analytic solution. You have not solved the problem of how do you get the data in the enterprise. You have not solved the problem of how can you democratize data. You have not solved the big problems. You have just taken a very small problem and believing that that is the route that I will take through the business and you'll be able to succeed and scale. It is not going to be possible. So solve the problem end to end, identify the hooks so that everybody in the enterprise, if you go from, let's say, if you do it the other way around, in which you went and build a very excellent platform, but your KPIs are not reflecting what the business guy is looking at, you'll never be able to scale. So it has to be that holistic problem looking, holistic identification of the problem, and trying to have a product-led growth. Product-led growth does not mean only look at one part of the organization, but look at the whole enterprise and solve the problem for the enterprise.
Yeah. So, friends, I want to give you one example here and share my experience. When I was a, entrepreneur in I'm thinking late 90s, and I built a point of sale solution. And by the time it came in, we were active in the market. I'm talking about 98, 99, 2000. There were a lot of established players, big players like IBM, TCS, and Polaris, who I was competing with. So fortunately, though I was not lucky to have mentors like Piyush and other leaders at that point of time. It was just a gut feel that I identified some few key solutions which I was offering. It was not a simple billing solution, but I had few key features which I knew were different than for Indian market than anybody else. And I used to identify people who will appreciate those features in the business. I never approached an IT manager or IT head in those companies. I went to even the CEOs sometimes and showed them that this is what I have created. And that used to fascinate them. And that is what I got entry into. That is number one. And number two, I want to tell you, when if somebody raised questions, how do you compete with a large company as a startup? I think the 2-3 very basic fundamental things are: one is be very honest, very, very honest and sincere, and in your approach to the company. Don't overpromise anything. We tend to, as a small company, as a small startup, under pressure, we tend to overcommit ourselves. We tend to commit things which we can't do. And also be very honest and upfront at what you can do, what you cannot do. And come out in a very simplistic manner. Don't try to, I didn't have the luxury of making presentations those days. I used to only talk. So, when you talk and we talk from heart, a lot of things come out honestly, So I think those are some of the things which I remember, and those, in my view, still work, because after all, everybody is a human being, and it works very well. So that is what it is from my side. And anything else, Piyush Bhai, you would like to add before we close, or any other question if anybody has?
Yeah, so I think there is one question that somebody is asking, what is digital? Yeah, so to me, it is not just about SEO, email marketing and stuff like that. It is much more than that. Product-led growth is a concept in itself.
Yeah.
You need to look at and then read through them. As to make sure that it is not just the jazzy emails, jazzy LinkedIn posts, which is going to make a difference. Product-led growth is a concept in itself. How do you make your entire offering, which is led by the product itself, so that you don't need those frills. Obviously, you will need some amount of push through these digital marketing tools. Either through connects, emails, Facebook, LinkedIn and other social marketing which is out there. But that isn't cherry on the top. The whole thing is the product and the product and the product and nothing else. Yeah. If your product is not able to create that hook, in which, so for example, if you put in let's say, if I were to give a very simple example, if you were building let's say a last mile solution for e-commerce players, which is a very hot segment in today's context, and you say that all right, I can solve your last mile problem. You did a LinkedIn ad And if basically where should the link take from LinkedIn over to you? Most of the time, it takes you to the web page, the landing page of your solution. To me, that does not excite. Okay, all you have said is you already told me that you have a good last mile solution offering, which is, let's say, verticalized. If it is a verticalized, you say that I have a fashion led last mile solution already, which is that I'm, and if I know what a fashion last mile solution is, I know what I'm going into, and that is why I've clicked that. If you take me to the standard landing page, you have already so-called not made me very happy. Yeah. If you were to basically take me to a very crisp feature, wherein I can say that, you can say that, look, we have solved for 30 retailers, and these are the offerings which are out there for. So, for example, one of the things is returns is a big problem of last mile or reverse mile for fashion. Now, that could be a very big differentiator. And if I were to see that, okay, now these guys understand domain very well. They know that 20 to 30% of fashion is returned, and hence solving that return process is going to be a big differentiator for that solution. So try to identify those hooks. Last mile is a generic industry segment. Don't sell industry segments. People know that. Try to identify what those hooks are, and that is what is meant by product-led growth. You have to identify those product hooks which are out there so that you are able to create that impact to your buyer, and hence you are able to convert them.
Right. So thank you very much, Piyush bhai. It was a wonderful discussion. I wish we had more time, and I enjoyed having this discussion with you. It was a learning experience for me, at least personally, and I hope all of you enjoyed doing this. And write to us at info@100Watts.tech, and keep joining our sessions like this. We'll keep trying to address some of the issues raised by some of you. And thank you very much, Piyush bhai, once again. Over to you, Trupti at TIE.
Thank you, Ajay, and thank you, Piyush. I think we had a very wonderful session. Sorry for the background noise. I'm actually placed outside right now. But I have already got a request for the presentation. So if Piyush can probably share it, that would be wonderful. So we can probably mail it across to the audience. We will be uploading this video in the next, I think by Tuesday end. EOD is when we are expecting. So please, thank you all for joining us today. Thank you, Ajay.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Piyush bhai. Thank you once again.
Thanks, everyone.